Hello family, welcome back to my channel. So today we are doing a roundup of all of the books that I read in 2021, and then I also have a little pile of books that I'm reading next. One may get read by the end of this year. We have like 4 days left. I don't even know what day it is. So I might end up trying, because I had already started it, so I may finish it by the end of this year, but I wanted to go over with you what I read, what I recommend, why I liked it, why I didn't like it, things like that. And I used to love reading. I wasn't like a crazy bookworm or anything like that, but I used to just love getting a book of any genre really and just like diving into the characters and into a different world and things like that. But I swear to you, I have developed the inability to focus. And I think that it comes down to, I've been working since I was 14. Time management was an essential skill in all of the positions that I've held in my careers. And I think that when you have to focus on time management, it means multitasking, which means that I no longer can just focus on one task. My mind is going 10 million directions, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that fact. So when I try to read, it's very difficult for me to stay focused. So I think that's why like these books, they have to really hook me in order for me to be able to say, like, I would give this a 5 out of 5, because otherwise I get too distracted and I'm all over the place. So anyways, I want to go through the books that I read. A few of them I have physically in front of me, so I can kind of hold it up and show you. But the first group of books, I actually did not have physical copies of it. If you did not know this, I'm going to give you a little bit of a life hack. Most libraries allow you to download digital versions of the book for like a 21-day period. At least I think that's how long my library was. And then you can just download it straight to a Kindle app, or if you have a Kindle device. I personally just downloaded it to the Kindle app, and then I would read it on my iPad or my phone. So it was like I was able to check out books for free without having to physically go to the library. Okay, so first book that I read this year was called Summer of '69, and it's by Elin Hilderbrand. Hopefully I said that right. And I'm just gonna go ahead and read the little summary that they give. And oh, one thing I wanted to mention is I'm not gonna be doing any spoilers in this, so don't be concerned with that. I don't like spoilers, so I'm not gonna share spoilers with you. I'll just try to keep it generic to what I liked, what I didn't like about the book, but there won't be spoilers. Okay, so let me read the little summary. Welcome to the tumultuous summer of the 20th century. It's 1969, and for the Levin family, the times, they are a-changin'. Every year, the children have looked forward to spending the summer at their grandmother's historical home in downtown Nantucket. But like so much else in America, nothing is the same. Blair, the oldest sister, is marooned in Boston, pregnant with twins and unable to travel. Middle sister Kirby, caught up in the thrilling vortex of civil rights protests and determined to be independent, takes a summer job on Martha's Vineyard. Only son Tiger is an infantry soldier recently deployed to Vietnam. 13-year-old Jessie suddenly feels like an only child, marooned in the house. Wow, we like the word marooned. Marooned in the house with her out-of-touch grandmother and her worried mother, each of them hiding a troubling secret. As the summer heats up, Ted Kennedy sinks a car in the Chappaquiddick? That's gonna be wrong. I'm very sorry. Man flies to the moon, and Jessie and her family experience their own dramatic upheavals along with the rest of the country. In her first historical novel, rich with the details of an era that shaped both a nation and an island 30 miles out to sea, Elin Hilderbrand once again earns her title as Queen of the Summer Novel. Okay, so this book, I personally rated it a 4 out of, let me double check. I rated it, I use Goodreads in case anybody was wondering. I rated this book a 4 out of 5. Okay, here's the thing. This book literally took me to a different place. First of all, I grew up in New England. I grew up in Southeast Massachusetts. Really? Okay, Nala says hello. She had some other words that we're not going to mention at this time. Are you okay? You're fine. Just wait till Stella comes downstairs, you know? So anyways, I grew up in Southeast Massachusetts, so we had gone to Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard a handful of times. It was like earlier in my childhood, so I don't have super strong memories, but I just remember it just has that cool, like, quintessential New England summer vibes. I don't even know how to explain it if you haven't experienced like the Cape Cod or any of that, but man, it's awesome. So hopefully with us living on the East Coast, we can get back down there, but being able to jump into that location in this book was just a cool experience. And so my 4 out of 5 stars possibly could be biased because of the fact that the location is, you know, special to me. But it was really cool following like the 4 siblings and their different experiences, and then you get their parents in there as well. And there was a good amount of like story twists and plots and things like that. Sometimes stuff would happen and you're gonna expect it coming, but then like there's like another layer to it that you didn't expect and things like that. So I definitely think it was worth it, and it wasn't a heavy read. It wasn't like a thriller or suspense or anything like that. It was just like mind-provoking, I guess, because it brought you to a time in our country that was a little tumultuous, and it was a way of seeing 4 different ages kind of navigate those times and what they had to go through. So I definitely recommend it if you want like a lighter read that's not going to be super heavy but still touches on some important historical topics. I think that I would recommend it to you. So that was book number 1 of 2021. Then this is kind of funny. I in 2020 and 2021, all of a sudden I got super into Hallmark movies. I don't know what happened. I used to work in retail, so during Christmas time, I hated anything Christmas. I didn't like Christmas music. I barely decorated the house. We didn't drive around and look at lights or anything like that because I was just like, all the joy had been sucked out of me. Well, I left retail in 2016, which is crazy. It's been 5 years, but I left retail in 2016. So slowly, like my Scrooge and my Frozen Heart kind of wore off, and I started getting into Christmas. So in 2020, as I was working my small business for my Etsy shop, I would just have Hallmark movies on in the background because you always know what's going to happen. So one of the things that Hallmark, while I was watching those movies, was always promoting was this show called When Calls the Heart. And it's funny because the main actress that's in When Calls the Heart, I don't like her in any of the Hallmark movies. So that's what took me so long to finally watch the show. But then I finally watched it and I was freaking hooked. There's 8 seasons, I want to say, maybe 7. I got through like all of them ridiculously fast. I did not expect to like it that much because it was Hallmark, so I was thinking it was going to be cheesy. And don't get me wrong, it's very cheesy. But the storylines are so good. So after I got through the show, I feel like my fix wasn't like satisfied, you know? So I ended up finding out that there's a book series that it was based on. So I was like, well, let me read that. So my next 3 books that I read in 2021, and I'll read you the first one's little summary. It's pretty short. Well, I'll just read all 3 of them. Why not? But I'll just kind of lump them all together because, you know, it's just a continuation of the same story. And I think there's actually like several more books that need to be read. These were read through my library. So I was sitting there waiting for someone to return the books so I could read them. Okay, so When Calls the Heart is the name of the first one, and it's by Janet Oke. Janet Oke, I don't know, O-K-E. I'm thinking Oke. Okay, so the overall Goodreads rating is 4.18 out of 5. My rating, I gave it, I think I was really, I gave it a 4, I gave it a 5. I gave the first one a 5. Okay, so nothing in her cultured East Coast upbringing prepared Elizabeth for her teaching position on the Canadian frontier. Yet despite the constant hardships, she loves the children in her care. Determined to do the best job she can and fighting to survive the harsh land, Elizabeth is surprised to find her heart softening towards a certain member of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. It's the book 1 of the best-selling Canadian West series, and that's the only synopsis that they give you. So basically it's set, I want to say in the 1800s, it could be early 1900s, but I'm not 100% sure. And basically this girl is from somewhere on the East Coast of Canada, I'm guessing Toronto, Montreal, something like that. And then she ends up having to move out to the west of Canada. So she is closer to one of her family members, but still pretty far away. And she's, I don't want to say spoiled because she has like a good heart about her, but she definitely is privileged. And she came from a wealthy family who, she grew up in that type of societal expectation that she was going to marry and not have to work ever again. But instead she wants to be a teacher. That's her calling. So in this book, it's kind of her being independent and finding her way in a more rough type of situation. And she's with underprivileged children with a lack of education and things like that. So she's kind of navigating learning a new culture of people because these people are more like blue collar. I'm so sorry. She's just not happy today. These people are more like blue collar and she's from more of a white collar situation. So that was the first one and I gave it a 5 out of 5. This was honestly like earlier in this year. It was like March or April. So all I remember is just being surprised because I thought I was just going to be like rereading the same story as the show. But it turns out this has a completely different plot line. And so it was like I had the elements that I love from the show, but I got like a little bit of a spin-off, even though I know this is the original, but it was like spun off a little bit from what I watched on the show. So it was really cool because it was like same character development for the main character Elizabeth, but I got to have like a little bit of a variation on the story. So that was really cool. So I gave that one a 5 out of 5. Number 2 in the series is When Comes the Spring. So let me read the summary for this. And this got 3.98 out of 5 from Goodreads, and I gave it a 4 out of 5. So I was right around where they were. So as I was about to start reading the summary, I realized that I cannot read you the summary because then it would be a spoiler from the first book. So I won't be able to do that. So I'll just give you a little bit of what I thought. So the second book, I specifically remember, like, I don't know why I gave it a 4 out of 5 because I think now that I'm thinking back, I'd probably give it like a 3.5 out of 5. Oh, because they don't let you do like 3.5 stars. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So I'd probably give it like 3.5 out of 5. So my thing with this book was it just like dragged on a little bit. So it was like, I know they were probably doing it for character development, but it was just like a little bit slower. But I feel like it was necessary to read because it got you to the next one. So then the third book is called When Breaks the Dawn. This one, Goodreads gives it a 4.14 out of 5. I gave it a 4 out of 5. Basically, in this one, without giving any spoilers away, she ends up switching to a new school and she is presented with new challenges because she's having to adjust to the different types of families that are there. And then she's also adjusting to the location that she's at because she has to move and the living situation that she has. So this one was better than the second one, but not as good as the first one, I would say. But it definitely like hooked me back in. But now I need to get out and read. I want to say there's like maybe 3 more, maybe 4 in this series. So gotta see when the library will open that up. But I would recommend if you want kind of like a, you know, historical love story is what I would call it. This would be a cool series to read if you want to get your hands on that. Okay, so then let me just see. Okay, so that is the roundup of all the books that I don't have physically. So then what happened was, so this was all the way up until like June. So I read the first one in April, then May, then June. Then what happened was we had to move across country. So once I got to Virginia, I ended up going to Barnes and Noble to physically like smell books. Like I haven't been in a Barnes and Noble in so long, or any bookstore for that matter, because in Hawaii they had closed down most of the locations, so I haven't physically been in a bookstore forever. Plus I'm on like a pretty, not strict, but I've been on a budget journey, if you will. So buying books was definitely one of the things I wasn't doing. I was just using the free library app. But when we first got here, I knew that I was going to be in like Airbnbs and hotels. I wasn't going to be able to cook. I really wouldn't have much cleaning to be doing, and John was going to be at work. I would be kind of cooped up with the animals because we were going to have one car. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to treat myself and I'm going to go to a bookstore. So let me start off with, this one was not part of my little book haul from there, but I did read it this year. I had saved it for this trip. And I can feel people's fingers starting to go for the comments because they're gonna come for me about my review of this book, but I just need to be honest, okay? So I'm sorry, but the next book that I read was Untamed by Glennon Doyle. This is a very long summary, so I'm just gonna read some of it. I'm just gonna read the first little section. So there is a voice of longing inside each of us. We strive so mightily to be good partners, daughters, mothers, employees, and friends. We hope all this striving will make us feel alive. Instead, it leaves us feeling weary, stuck, overwhelmed, and underwhelmed. We look at our lives and wonder, wasn't it all supposed to be more beautiful than this? We quickly silence that question, telling ourselves to be grateful, hiding our discontent even from ourselves. And then it says, for many years, Glennon Doyle, the writer of this, denied her own discontent. Okay, so here's the thing with this book. If you want like a woman empowerment book, I would probably recommend reading this. I'm not mad I read it in any way, shape, or form. It's just the only thing that I hate about books like this, and hate is such a strong word. The only thing that like bothers me about books like this is kind of like on borderline self-help. I'm guessing that's the category it's in. I just don't like when writers try to act like they have everything figured out, because I don't care if you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, life is always teaching you something. And so I'm guessing she's probably in her 40s, maybe 50s, for her to act like she has life figured out enough to tell women all this discovery, that just drives me nuts. And I don't know why, but it's funny because in the book too, she had written a book previously, and she was specifically like, part of her struggle was because she wrote this book and she felt like she needed to uphold everything that she wrote in that book because she was telling people like how to do something in that first book. But then here she is again in this one, trying to tell women how to be and how to feel and things like that. And I was just like, but you don't know everything. Like nobody knows everything. You know what I mean? So it's like, we can talk about our experiences and we can, but it's just, to me, it's like, it's not the end. Like when you write books like this, there's no ending because it's a journey in life. And I know this sounds so crazy, but I hope you know what I'm saying. So that's the only thing I didn't like about it, but overall it was pretty good. I just felt like there was a lot of filler in there, and I get it because like you're writing a book about your life. So it's like lives are not as exciting as fictional books. But I don't know. It's just not for me. This book was just not for me. And maybe that's not how everybody else took it, because listen, everybody reads things differently. Maybe I was specifically sensitive during a time in my life when reading this. Who freaking knows, you know? The next one that I read was Was Anastasia. And this is by Ariel Lawhon, something like that. This is loosely based on a true story, but it's not, the book itself is not a true story. So let me read the little summary. Russia, July 17th, 1918. Under direct orders from Vladimir Lenin, Bolshevik secret police force Anastasia Romanov, along with the entire imperial family, into a damp basement in Siberia where they face a merciless firing squad. None survive. At least that is what the executioners have always claimed. Germany, February 17th, 1920. A young woman bearing an uncanny resemblance to Anastasia Romanov is pulled shivering and senseless from a canal in Berlin. Refusing to explain her presence in the freezing water, she is taken to a hospital where an examination reveals that her body is riddled with countless horrific scars. When she finally does speak, this frightened, mysterious woman claims to be the Russian Grand Duchess Anastasia. The questions circling around Anna Anderson's past and the mystery of Anastasia Romanov's fate chart a saga that spans half a century and touches 3 continents. Every bit as vivid and climactic as it's poignant and enchanting. As it is poignant? How do you say that word? And enchanting, this novel brings a piece of legendary history to life. So, first of all, when I posted this on Instagram that I read this, people asked me, who is Anastasia? Like, were you even born in the 90s? Anastasia was one of my favorite movies growing up. Sorry, I need to shut this off, and I don't know how to. You may hear dings. We're hearing cat sounds. We're hearing dings on the computer. We're just going to accept it. Anastasia was one of my favorite movies growing up. She was like a semi-Disney princess. Now she's technically owned by Disney, so I guess she really is again. But it was one of my favorite movies, so that's why I picked this one up, because I was just always like intrigued by the story. Like, did she die? Did she not die? You know what I mean? So in this book, basically, it's this woman. Her name is Anna Anderson, and it goes through different stages of her life. If you are interested in the Anastasia story, it's not going to hurt you to read this, but I would wait until you can get it for free on your library app or at like a thrift shop or something, because I would not spend, this was $16, this paperback version. I would not spend the money again on this. I would give this like a 2.5 out of 5. The thing that I did not like about this book is it jumps all over the place. Like, it's supposed to be in between 1918 and 1920, but then like as the book goes on, it's jumping from like 1918 to 1920 to like 1950s, then back to 1920, then back to 1918. It's just all over the place. I can somewhat handle when you do flashbacks if it was like 1918 and 1920 just going back and forth, but this one they had like 4 different time frames and they were just like hopping all over the place, so it was just way too much. Without giving out any spoilers, the ending is obnoxious. It just like all built up to this moment, and then it was just like, oh, this is what happened. And it was like, so again, not really a recommend, but if you like the Anastasia story like me and you need something to do, why not? Okay, next up, and again, I feel like people are going to start typing hate towards me for not liking this book, but this book is The House We Grew Up In by Lisa Jewell. So meet the picture-perfect bird family, pragmatic Meg, dreamy Beth, and toe-headed twins Rory and Reese. One an adventurous troublemaker, the other his slighter, more sensitive counterpart. Their father is a sweet, gangly man, but it's their beautiful, free-spirited mother, Lorelai, who spins at the center. In those early years, Lorelai tries to freeze time by filling their simple brick house with precious mementos. Easter egg foils are her favorite, craft supplies too. She hangs all of the children's art to her husband's chagrin. I don't know if that's the right way to say that word. Then one Easter weekend, a tragedy so devastating occurs that almost imperceptibly it begins to tear the family apart. Years pass and the children have become adults, while Lorelai has become the county's worst hoarder. She has alienated her husband and children. She has alienated her husband and children and has been living as a recluse. But then something happens that beckons the Bird family back to that house they grew up in, to finally understand the events of that long ago Easter weekend and to unearth the many secret hiddens within the nooks and crannies of the home. So first thing I'll say about this book is it definitely pulled me in. I enjoyed the characters of the book a lot. Like, I liked the different personalities in the family, and I felt it was really realistic. Because I hate the books where they make like siblings are all the same person. This book, they did not do that. They made it like everybody had very strong personalities that sometimes worked with each other, sometimes didn't, and things like that. So I did enjoy that. I will say that if you have any type of childhood trauma at all, not even on the topic of hoarding, but just any type of childhood trauma or some type of a strange relationship with a parent, I probably would not recommend reading this book unless you have really thick skin, because I'm a sensitive soul and it just kind of like brought some stuff up in me. So I would just recommend, if you have any form of anything, that you may read this with caution, or if you get uncomfortable through the book, just put it away. You know what I mean? But I did enjoy the characters. I did feel like it was, you know, it sucked me in, but I felt like there was just so much extra detail in this book that was completely unnecessary. There was literally like chapters. I would go like 4 chapters of just unnecessary detail, like completely unnecessary. And I'm the type of person, I enjoy the detail of a book because I think it builds up to where you need to be. But this one was just like, I don't know if she had a certain page count her publisher wanted or whatever the case was, but there would be like groups of chapters where it was just way too much. There was also 2 like major dramatic events in this book. One of them you knew was going to happen the entire time, and the entire one, the second one, it took the entire book to reveal. And then when you got there, they just didn't do justice to the situation. Like, it was like this built the whole book. Then you get to what actually happened that day, and it was like 4 sentences were were given to the situation. So I just felt like I didn't like that. Like, I felt like you could have taken the filler and details that you used on those unnecessary chapters and dedicated it to this very sensitive situation and kind of explored it. Not that I'm a writer or anything, so I don't want anybody thinking like I know how to do better than somebody who is probably, New York best-selling author, New York Times best-selling author. I'm not like saying I'm better than her. I'm just saying this is my personal feelings towards that book. Okay, so I saw this book on TikTok, and then when I went to Barnes & Noble, I had forgot that I saw it on TikTok, but they were cool enough to have a book talk table. Okay, so it was like popular books from TikTok, and this was on there, and I was like, that's right, I wanted to read that. So this is called Verity by Colleen Hoover, and this was my first experience with Colleen Hoover, and I'll definitely be reading more. So this one says, Lowen Ashley is a struggling writer on the brink of financial ruin when she accepts the job offer of a lifetime. Jeremy Crawford, husband of best-selling author Verity Crawford, has hired Lowen, I don't know if I'm saying her name right, to complete the remaining books in a successful series his injured wife is unable to finish. Lowen arrives at the Crawford home, ready to sort through years of Verity's notes and outlines, hoping to find enough material to get her started. What Lowen doesn't expect to uncover in the chaotic office is an unfinished autobiography Verity never intended for anyone to read. Page after page of bone-chilling admissions, including Verity's recollection of the night their family was forever altered. Lowen decides to keep the manuscript hidden from Jeremy, knowing its contents would devastate the already grieving father. But as Lowen's feelings for Jeremy begin to intensify, she recognizes all the ways she could benefit if he were to read his wife's words. After all, no matter how devoted Jeremy is to his injured wife, a truth this horrifying would make it impossible for him to continue to love her. Okay, so Goodreads gives it a 4.38 out of 5. I would give this a 4.5 out of 5. It's a very haunting novel, and you're literally like, the remnants of reading this is with you for days. It's one of those types. I wouldn't call it a thriller. It says that it's a romantic thriller. I wouldn't call it a thriller. I'd call it more like of a suspense. I don't know if I just watched too much Criminal Minds, but it wasn't like the type like where you're like jumpy in your seat or anything, but it's just like creepy. Like there's like a creepy, haunting vibe to this book. Verity, who is what the book is titled after, who's the injured wife, she's just like a haunting character, and you never get enough of her because she's injured. So you can't get her side. You're just reading the words of a manuscript. So it's like, it's kind of like you're always in this book left wanting more. And the relationship between Lowen and Jeremy, it's very like expected, like you know what's going to happen, but at the same time, like there's this mistrust, I don't want to say mistrust, but there's this uncertainty about their relationship. So it's like she never fully dives into the relationship with him because she feels like he's holding back because like his injured wife is still alive, So it's just, this is a definite recommend. I would recommend this book, and it makes me want to read more of Colleen Hoover because I just felt like the way she told the story was incredibly captivating is the word that I would use. I couldn't stop reading that. I read that book in a day. I read it for like 7 hours straight. I don't know how I had time to do that. It was probably when we were in the Airbnb, but I could not put that book down. So if you're looking for a book like that, I would recommend. Okay, so now we've gotten through all the books that I read in 2021. That was only like, 8 books? That's embarrassing. Okay, I plan to do better in 2022, but I'm also going to have a newborn, so more than likely not. But I'm going to show you guys the rest of the books that I picked up when we went to Barnes & Noble, and then I also got one from Sam's Club. Let me start with that. And it's from Colleen Hoover. It's got you can see, it's normally $17 apparently, but at Sam's Club it was only $11.36. So if you're looking for books, maybe hit up Sam's Club or Costco. So this is also from Colleen Hoover, and it's called It Ends With Us. And it says, Lily hasn't always had it easy, but that's never stopped her from working hard for the life she wants. She's come a long way from the small town in Maine where she grew up. She graduated college, moved to Boston, and started her own business. I can't talk. So when she feels a spark with the gorgeous neurosurgeon named Ryle Kincaid, everything in Lily's life suddenly seems almost too good to be true. Ryle is assertive, stubborn, maybe even a little arrogant. What surgeon isn't, right? Grey's Anatomy fans, where you at? He's also sensitive, brilliant, and has a total soft spot for Lily, but Ryle's complete aversion to relationships is disturbing. As questions about her new relationship overwhelm her, so do thoughts of Atlas Corrigan, her first love and a link to a past she left behind. He was her kindred spirit, her protector. When Atlas suddenly reappears, everything Lily has built with Ryle is threatened. With this bold and deeply personal novel, Colleen Hoover delivers a heart-wrenching story that breaks exciting new ground for her as a writer. It ends with us as an unforgettable tale of love that comes at the ultimate price. So that's going to be next year because I had already started a book, as I told you. So the girl that wrote The House We Grew Up In, so many people, I had asked on Instagram for recommendations of books, and so many people told me about this Lisa Jewell girl, and then I ended up not liking The House We Grew Up In, and I feel kind of bad. But then the other one that was recommended was Watching You, and this is also from Lisa Jewell. It says, Melville Heights is one of the nicest neighborhoods in Bristol, England. It's not usually the sort of place where people are murdered in their own kitchens, but it is the sort of place where everyone has a secret and prying eyes lurk behind every curtain. So who has been murdered, and who would have wanted one of their neighbors dead? Watching You will keep you guessing until the starting revolution on the very last page. So I started reading this, and I got up to page 46, chapter 11. I put this down about 3 weeks ago, and I haven't picked it back up. I'm just not sucked in yet. Hopefully that'll change soon, but I am going to try and finish this before the end of the year because then we can move on with our lives. Okay, next up, this one I'm like super excited for, but everybody keeps telling me like I need to buy the next ones in the series because it's going to be like a cliffhanger. So I got the Cuckoos Calling from Robert Galbraith. I don't know if I said that right, but we all know it's J.K. Rowling, okay? So this one says, when a troubled supermodel falls to her death from the balcony of her London home, it's assumed that she committed suicide. However, her brother has his doubts and calls in a private detective, Cormoran Strike, to investigate. Strike is a war veteran, wounded both physically and psychologically, and his private life is in disarray. The case gives him a financial lifeline, but it comes at a personal cost. The more he delves into the young model's world, the darker things get and the closer he comes to terrible danger. So I'm really excited to read this one, and it came highly recommended. Next up, we have Before and After. This was just like a random one. I was walking in like the historical aisle because that's my favorite genre. I really love like the ones that are either loosely based on true events or based on true events. So this one is the incredible real life story of orphans who survived the Tennessee Children's Home Society. It says from the 1920s to 1950, Georgia Tan ran a black market baby business at the Tennessee Children's Home Society in Memphis. She offered up more than 5,000 orphans, tailored to the wish lists of eager potential parents, hiding the fact that many of these children were not orphans at all, but they were stolen sons and daughters of poor families, desperate single mothers, and women told in maternity wards that their babies had died. Before and After includes moving and sometimes shocking accounts of the ways in which adoptees were separated from their first families. Often raised as only children, many have joyfully reunited with siblings in the final decades of their life. That wraps this up. I'm not going to do like a long drawn out outro because I know this was really long. I hope you all had a magical Christmas and it was filled with all of your favorite things, good food, laughs, even if you didn't get to be with your loved ones. I hope you got to connect with them in some way. And I hope you have a fabulous new year and it brings you nothing but joy and success. Thank you guys so much for coming along with me today. And after listening to all of this, if you're like, I have the perfect book for Kate because I have an insight into her soul and the things that she likes to read, please leave it in the comments below. Do not forget to subscribe before you leave and have yourself a wonderful day. Bye guys.